What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Emperor Atheist channel with your host, the Emperor Atheist. This particular video will be part 2 of my case against this resurrection of a person called Jesus Christ. First and foremost, thanks to all my subscribers, new and old. Thanks for all my likes and thanks for all my shares. I appreciate the love. Continuing the fight for rationale and reason and logic. This particular series, as far as Jesus Christ resurrected and biblical inerrancy being debunked, I'm going to continue it for a while because a lot of people are asking for this particular type of information. And I particularly like to delve into these particular subjects because I think they're very important. But it's specifically this particular subject as far as dealing with the evidence against the resurrection of Christ. Why do I say that? Because we know that the Bible, not only the Bible, but the Christian creed is basically nothing, or null and void, without this resurrection or this Jesus Christ thing. And this is why I said in my first video, for those who haven't actually went back and viewed my first video on the resurrection, my case against the resurrection, please go back and view it so you can be able to follow me better with this part 2 segment. In my first part, I spoke about Saint Genevieve, excuse me, of the Roman patron, Catholic patron, and how 9 times out of 10, most Christians today would not believe all of the miracles or supernatural things surrounding this particular woman, but yet they will believe all of the supernatural things surrounding this Jesus Christ of 2,000 years ago. As a matter of fact, if we was to just seriously, logically put it into words, if someone was to write something of what Jesus did, say 10 days ago, it wouldn't be believed by probably anyone. But yet, Christians, theists as a whole, believe in these mythical, supernatural tales of 2,000 years ago. And this is a bad thing. This is not a good thing. I want to say this as well. For those of you who did see my April Fool edition resurrection story, I kind of mentioned certain things about this as well. But in particularly today, I'm going to mention the so-called 500 witnesses of Paul, which I have mentioned before several months ago, as a matter of fact. I'm going to mention it again here because it's very important to actually, like I said in my last video, to go straight at the jugular vein of Christianity. Corinthians, and when we go to Corinthians 15:6, and we know what Corinthians says, basically Paul says, as far as the eyewitnesses, he says that Jesus appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have died. Now this is 1 Corinthians 15:6, talking about the 500 witnesses. But the reason why I am going at this particular subject, and we all should be going to this particular subject, because it also says in Corinthians, if this Jesus Christ did not die for your sins, then our faith is in vain. So, without a doubt, your faith is definitely in vain if you believe in this mythical stuff of 2,000 years ago. So this is the jugular vein that we are going at, to show that the resurrection is a false story, it's a false narrative. And it's not really a hard thing to basically do. It's really not. And you have so many so-called Christian scholars out here, Christian apologists, who say that it's a fact. Like I said in my last video, I actually put the video in the link of the last video about William Lane Craig and his 3 points. You have other scholars, so-called Christian apologists, people like Douglas Javette, who says he declares that the evidence of the physical resurrection meets historical, meets all of historical methods, which is a lie. He says that the criteria that they use, that they believe that this Jesus and the New Testament meets, is of the highest order of historians. Now that's a lie. And for some reason, Christians always try to compare Jesus to people like Caesar, and like I talk to a lot of people, even on Facebook, when they say, well, even like I say, even though I'm not a Christ mythicist, because I honestly give Christians that we can let Jesus be a real historical person. I really don't care, because it's still phony. He didn't die for anybody's sins. He wasn't resurrected. He didn't turn any water to Fanta grape soda. He didn't walk on water unless he was in the shower or bathing wherever they was bathing in the sea, where he threw pigs in. I don't know. But none of this supernatural stuff happened. He didn't heal any blind people because laser surgery wasn't even going on back then. So a lot of things, he didn't raise Jairus' daughter from the dead. So these things are phony, regardless of him being an actual historical person. It's irrelevant. He didn't do the things that most Christians believe he did. But this is the thing, and I just wish this would stop comparing, especially the evidence of the resurrection, which is, like I said, is the main point. Forget all the other stuff. Him feeding 4,000 and 5,000 people two separate times with 2 pieces of fish and loaves of bread. We have no external evidence for any garbage like this. But let's just stick with the resurrection. When we compare, we're talking about Caesar. You look at, first of all, Caesar wrote his own thing that the historians know was written by Caesar. It's the Civil War. When we talk about the Republican Civil War, for those who are not familiar with this, in his own words, and it's a Latin classic over 2,000 years, written by Caesar himself and by one of his generals, which was, by the way, one of his closest friends. Now, in contrast to this, we don't have anything written by Jesus. It's Jesus Christ. Nothing. We don't have anything attested by friends or even enemies that he was raised from the dead. We have nothing at all. No external history or piece of evidence of anything like this. But yet we have historical evidence of Caesar and the Civil War. We have history of of Caesar's enemies, Cicero, which by the way was a contemporary writer of Caesar's time. So I mean, and this particular point I'm talking about Caesar is basically him crossing of the Rubicon. So we have actual external evidence of Julius Caesar. Not only do we have this external evidence in writing, we have this external evidence on coins and all different type of things and paraphernalia. So Christians who claim these type of, try to compare Jesus' evidences or the things they believe about this particular being with people like real historians, real historical figures like Julius Caesar and like Caesar period, they need to stop because they're making themselves look real bad. So like I said, we actually have the story of the Rubicon crossing. We have nothing of the resurrection. Now, well, some people say, well, the theists say, well, we have the New Testament. We have Mark, we have Matthew, Luke. Those are not evidences for the resurrection of Christ. What Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 15:6 of 500 people witnessing this Jesus is not evidence of Jesus resurrected from the dead. First of all, this is the main question I need to ask dealing with this. The first question that we need to ask is, which is I think is a very fair question. First question that need to be asked is, first of all, who were these 500 witnesses? Who were they? Where did they come from? I think the common sense question within these questions would be, why didn't any of these particular 500 witnesses write about this? Next question would be, how do we even know these 500 witnesses witnessed him before he so-called died? I mean, because think about this. When you talk about Corinth, this is and the history of Corinth and Paul. Corinth, by the way, is just an ancient name for the modern city of Peloponnese, Greece, which is in Greece, which is about 830 miles away from Jerusalem, where all of these mythical events took place of Jesus' resurrection. Now think about this for a minute. Just think about this. First of all, Paul had made himself, had became basically a head figure of this new cult called Christianity. So the people of Corinth, who when he got there, that 9 times 10 weren't going to question him. And this is something that we don't get in history. And this is what I said in a couple of my debates. Who challenged Paul? Who challenged Paul's assertions? No one. No one challenged them historically. Who are these 500 witnesses? Where did they come from? Do we have any writers of them? Do we have any names? Do we have anything like this? Addresses? I mean, I don't care. What did any of them look like? Next question, as I just asked, how do we know these 500 witnesses even knew Jesus beforehand or knew that he had died? How many of these 500 witnesses that Paul claims saw Jesus actually saw him down the cross? So 15:6, Corinthians 15:6 does not, 1 Corinthians 56 does not explain that. It just says that he was seen by 500. So let's just say if we did actually took a trip, 800-mile trip, which of course nobody could have done that back then. Nobody probably did it. Even if we would have talked to some of these so-called witnesses, which we have no names, we don't know any sources or anything like that. What could they have actually told us? And how does that predicate that this Jesus actually rose back from the dead? It doesn't. It's just like me saying that I had 50 witnesses. Okay, I had 50 witnesses that saw me fly a UFO to Mars. How did these 50 witnesses see this? Because they was on the ship with me. We went to Mars and we zipped right back. I have 50 witnesses. Well, Embrace, can you produce these 50 witnesses? Yeah. I mean, they're somewhere around. You got to find them. A few of them probably still living. They still here. This happened like in 1995. A couple of them done got locked up. A few of them is on DUI, got caught some DUIs, and some of them just high on meth and cocaine now, so they might not be in their right mind, but a few of them probably still here. I can easily write that down. I can easily claim that. And this is what the Bible does. And this is what I have to keep explaining to these people who suffer from cognitive dissonance, who want to believe this nonsense called Christianity, who want to believe in mythical things like human beings resurrecting. Just because someone wrote this in a book called the New Testament, called 1 Corinthians, doesn't mean that it's true. So, and this is what Christian apologists actually say. They say, well, Paul say he was seen by 500. He was seen by Peter. He was seen by a few disciples. Paul didn't see him, of course. Paul didn't meet him till so-called later in the book of Acts, according to whoever wrote Acts, Luke, whoever you want to say wrote it. But this is the lie that Paul wrote. Now, this is another thing that's strange to me. I think that people don't pay attention to. Why? How did Paul know the exact number? I mean, he said it was seen by the 500. How did he know the exact number? Who numbered the people? Was it some type of congregation? See, we're missing a lot of information when we're talking about this particular myth. Who actually numbered the 500? I mean, where did they go? Why no one else talked about it? And see, this is the thing, and not only that, we're talking about a time frame. Chronology is always important, which I always talk about biblical chronology compared to archaeology and history, which shows that the Bible is man-made and wrong and not a divine book. I always say that. A lot of other scholars say that. But this is the thing. If we put a time frame on 1 Corinthians, and we know Paul's letters are much earlier than the Gospels, so I guess we could place 1 Corinthians, and I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and actually go through my textual studies. But I think we can probably place 1 Corinthians around maybe 60 AD or CE, which we would probably 9 times out of 10 say was probably 30 years or more after this so-called resurrection happened. So think about this. You got this letter that said that he was seen by 500, by 30 years later. So even if we was to make this 800-mile trip back to Jerusalem, right, from Peloponnese, Greece, which was ancient Corinth, even if we was to make this trip, we're talking 30 years later or so. We're talking to people, what did you see? You know, what did you see back then? Do you remember what you saw? I mean, it's almost like an irrelevant thing. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And for people to believe this, and for scholars to keep lying to the public that these things are evidence. It's like William Lane Craig, like I mentioned in my first video. William Lane Craig always used the term three facts. And he doesn't have any facts at all. What he has are beliefs, assertions from a book that is not historically accurate at all. Probably not even 50% historically accurate. So these things are lies. So these are the things that we have to ask these questions. And one thing that I always say when dealing with this resurrection story, and dealing with particularly what Paul said, and dealing with the eyewitnesses, what actually did these 500 see? I mean, what did they see? I mean, they just saw Jesus walking. Okay, they saw Jesus walking. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say they saw this Jesus walking. Okay, do these 500 witnesses know for a fact that he actually died? Now, a lot of, and I spoke about the swoon theory in my first part. Swoon theory meaning is basically a theory that says that a lot of this stuff was imagined, was illusionary, or did Jesus feign it, or different things like this, or that these disciples, all these people, just had an illusion. Well, this is the thing. I don't necessarily use that. I don't really care for it. It's okay. I'm not knocking it, but I just like to use a more common sense, a direct approach. Even if we go to the fact and say that 500 people, okay, which even though no theist has produced evidence of all the other questions that I just asked, but even if we go to the extent and say 500 people actually saw this Jesus, did these 500 people, that still does not show evidence that these 500 people actually knew Jesus was dead. Or did these 500 people, were they also present when Jesus died? So this is the thing that theists can't answer. These are the questions that theists can't answer. What did they particularly see? So talking about things like this, I mean, it's so easy to debunk, but you have so many apologists out here, and they have so many followers. It's like, well, the New Testament is evidence itself, and the New Testament is not evidence itself, because anybody can write anything down and claim to have witnesses. And even like I mentioned in my first part of this particular video, I spoke, I mean, not video, but in the first part of the series, when I spoke about the Mormons, I spoke about Joseph Smith. One thing that Joseph Smith had, even when he talked about these golden tablets that the angel brought to him, at least Joseph Smith actually had 11 witnesses that he could name. Not only did Joseph Smith have 11 witnesses that he could name that witnessed his golden tablets, they actually had pictures of these 11 witnesses. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put that in this link too. But now, if you ask, no, not, I was going to say majority. If you ask all of the Christians today, at least the Orthodox Christians today, and you ask them, what do you think about the Joseph Smith story? He said that an angel came to him and brought him these golden tablets. He even has 11 witnesses who witnessed these golden tablets, who signed their names. As a matter of fact, a couple of them was disbarred or cut away from this cult, and they still didn't change their story. The Christians have nothing like this. They have no witnesses that we know, that we can prove through history. We have no external evidences for any such thing as a mythical resurrection. So, but if you ask a Christian, what do you think about Joseph Smith's story and his 11 witnesses? They're going to say, oh, they all lying. Oh, it's fake. We don't believe it. No angel came to Joseph Smith. So why, I mean, just think about this. Is that fair to actually disregard Joseph Smith and what he claimed? An angel came to him with these golden tablets. And he has 11 witnesses who witnessed these golden tablets. Is it fair to just reject him, but you expect people to accept your garbage of 2,000 years ago with no real eyewitnesses? You read in 1 Corinthians 15:6 that Paul says he was seen by 500. But we have no idea who these witnesses were. He could have said 1,800. What it would have been. Think about this. And this is another point I need to make. What if 1 Corinthians 15:6 said, and Jesus was seen by 5 million people? Would it make a difference? Or 300? Or 250? Would it make a difference? No, it wouldn't. Why wouldn't it make a difference? Because none of these witnesses ever wrote about it outside of the Bible or outside of the New Testament. Once again, Matthew and Luke cannot be used as independent sources. The Gospels itself are not independent of each other. All of their particular views are together. All of their stories back each other. Well, not totally, because we know they contradict each other. So these are not independent sources. So this is why the New Testament is rejected by most real skeptics, by scholars, by even Christian scholars. There's a lot of Christian scholars who haven't even came out of the closet yet, who eventually going to become atheists or agnostic. Bart Ehrman is not the only one. Believe me, Robert Price is not the only one. There are a lot that's going to be coming out in later years, because it's opening up. It's coming more and more clear that Christianity, Islam, Judaism are just like all of the other ancient religions. They're just like Greek mythology. They're just like ancient Egyptian mythology, African mythology, ancient Indian mythology. It's the same thing. Ancient Nordic mythology, Thor and Zeus, and all of these are the same. Your Yahweh, your Allah is no different. So all of these things are going to particularly come to pass. But this is one more thing I wanted to say before I particularly end this video. Like I say, I challenge anybody, any Christian, scholar, whoever you want to be, YouTube, so-called scholar, to please answer and bring facts on how exactly do these 500 witnesses mentioned in 1 Corinthians 15:6 actually show evidence of Jesus' resurrection. Please show me how they predicate each other. I know you can't do it, but please try. And it's another thing, like I've mentioned before, and I even mentioned this in my book, as far as the cognitive dissonance concerning theists. Like even when you mention the Shroud of Turin, and I know a lot of you are familiar with the Shroud of Turin, all of these Christians went crazy many years ago, where they thought this fake picture of Jesus showed up on this cloth. Okay, even after it was shown to be fake and false, and it was debunked, clearly debunked, even a lot of Christians just forgot about it. But guess what? This is the thing about Christianity and what we call confirmation bias. Even today, there are still Christians who actually believe that this Shroud of Turin was real. Same thing with the naysayer hypothesis. It doesn't matter what you say, basically, or what evidence you come with, what evidence we come with. There are still going to be theists who cannot think for themselves, who are going to reject the evidence, who are just going to say, I don't care what you have to say. I don't care what other Christian scholars said. I don't care what no scholar said. I believe this is Jesus Christ's face in this dog booty. I believe this is Jesus Christ's face on this piece of fish. This is Jesus. This is a sign letting me know that I need to pray and I'm on the right path. So you're going to have these cuckoos. I mean, it's I don't know what else to say. It's basically a part of life. So I'm going to continue this series on my case against Jesus Christ. Like I said, I just wanted today to speak on the 500 and how this false witness of Paul, because Paul is basically lying. I just wanted to basically speak on this. And in my part 3, I'll probably continue to speak on this 500, on this particular verse. Thanks for watching. Like I said, I'm going to continue this series. Thanks again for watching. I'm Emperor Atheist. I'm out. Peace.
I pull my wand out and book a chapter.